I think that question is a cliche, but it's still relevant after this day. Why do you have to learn English? There are varied reasons why we have to study English, but I can only give you one reason. The English language has approximately 400 million native speakers worldwide, trailing only Mandarin and Spanish. But it is also the single most popular second language. As a result, when native and non-native English speakers are combined, it is recognized as the single most widely spoken language globally. In fact, English is an official language in 67 different countries. Of course, Philippines is included, and 27 non-sovereign entities. With that being said, I think it is safe to say that English is a major business language. And if it's a major business language, businesses around the world require their employees to be proficient in the language. With over 10 years of experience as an ESL teacher, most of my students learn English because of this reason.
English, listening, speaking, reading, or writing. How do you encourage them to cope with the difficulties they encountered?
With my experience as an ESL teacher, I think it's common for students to have some struggles in the listening part. They always complain that they have difficulties grasping what the speakers were saying when told to listen to recorded speeches and conversations. With the difficulty they're experiencing, I always tell my students that I also had the same problem growing up. In the middle of studying the English language, I realized that probably the reason that I hardly recognized some of the words the actors were saying while watching American movies was that I wasn't familiar with the idioms, phrases, collocations, and vocabulary they were using. In short, I only had limited knowledge of the English language. After realizing the problem, I started reading novels to enhance my vocabulary. However, it wasn't a plain sailing. The very first book that I started reading was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. You know, the title was captivating, but after days of reading it, I stopped. Not because the story was boring, I just couldn't seem to wrap my head around it. I couldn't make sense what I was reading, probably because of lack of vocabulary. You know, I always share this story to my students for them to know that we're exactly on the same page. Now, what have I done to cope with my vocabulary problem? Answer is, I keep vocabulary notes. Now, how does vocabulary relate to listening? Basically, if you're listening to someone talking or listening to recorded speeches, you won't be able to recognize some of the words that you're not familiar with, right? And that terribly affects understanding. So I tell my students that their struggles are normal. Every second language learner experiences the same thing. And then to help them cope with their problems with listening, I let my students practice listening. And I also encourage them to start reading books and have them keep vocabulary notes. That's all. Thank you. Well, I always tell this to my students. If you want to achieve something, you also have to do something about it. Achieving a goal doesn't happen overnight. You have to sweat and you have to squeeze every cell present in your brain to its limits. It's like reaching the peak of a mountain. You cannot just reach it by climbing it at once. You have to start at the very bottom. Yes, you'll encounter some pitfalls along the way. You make mistakes. But you have to make your mistakes your teacher. Because you have to taste the bitterness of sacrifices before you can taste the sweetness of success. Well, come on. Who doesn't want to study English?
Filipinos are taught on how to speak and learn about the English language, even during their primary school days. In fact, some parents speak English to their kids at home. And so today, we're going to ask some teachers from Campus Languages Center to share to us the importance of the English language. So what are we waiting for? Let's go!